Okay, so yesterday I had a very silly idea. I was like, hey, what if we took two OBS Studio principles and smashed them together, but with a modern twist? The first principle being the move transition. Basically, when you switch from one scene to another, it just moves, rearranges everything around for the new scene, just like that. Right? This video is called OBS One Scene Complete Stream Setup Challenge. So all of this was basically on one single scene. I had all my scenes in one scene, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to have some sort of 3D effect. I was like, instead of things going up and down, what if they came towards the camera or away from the camera? So once again, one single scene with all of my elements, and this time I tried to replicate a 3D effect. So the goal here was to use the blur, the composite blur plugin to make things go out of focus and then make things go in focus by, de-blurring them basically. As you can see, the effect was there, but it wasn't realistic. It didn't feel 3D at all. It's really difficult to have the proper distortion to actually make it 3D. But then recently we discovered that there was a plugin that turned any source into a 3D panel, and then later on another plugin that turns everything into just an extruded version of that transparent layer. So now we have one single plugin that already gives us that 3D effect. You can see me creating a Nintendo Switch in OBS Studio from scratch using that specific plugin. Boom. Just like that. And then it can be flipped on multiple axes, just like a 3D object. So yesterday I sat down for hours. I actually did the whole thing, but I lost it. It got deleted somehow. I had something happen with my OBS. It's gone. But at the same time, it didn't look as good as I would want it to be. And honestly, it's such a silly idea. I don't think anyone will do it. I don't think anyone should do it. The whole point was to create something to give you the inspiration. So what I'm going to do today is basically show you a little bit of my recordings from yesterday. And then I'm going to probably create a new scene and explain to you like the principles of how it would work if I actually sat down and take like a whole day to make it happen, which I'm probably not going to do. So, yeah. Okay, so what you're watching right now is basically the recording. I added the advanced mask plugin to my camera and also the 3D block. The reason I did that is because since the 3D block filter takes into account transparency, if you have an advanced mask plugin on top of it, then you'll be able to crop it. Why do we need to crop the camera? Because if we're going from just chatting, we kind of want a wide screen. And if we're going to gameplay from just chatting, we want it to crop so that the camera doesn't take that much space, right? So this is something I anticipated. And yeah, advanced mask before 3D block, you can basically keep it 3D while also cropping the camera. And then I added the composite blur to my camera because I know I was going to control it later on. Again, when things go out of focus, you make them blur more. And when they come into focus, you reduce the blur, right? Then I added my text, put a little gradient on it, added the 3D block again. The difference between 3D block and 3D panel plugin, 3D panel doesn't take into account transparency. For example, if you were to add 3D panel filter to this text, it would just be a big black panel with the text on it as a 2D image basically, right? So that 3D movement is also part of the 3D block and also 3D panel. It's the wiggle option. You can turn that all the way up and it moves a lot. But if you don't know, if you have no idea how the 3D panel, the move plugin, even the voice control that I ended up doing at the end, if you have no idea how any of those things work, there will be individual links in the description explaining each principle. So that's why I'm not really doing a step-by-step tutorial on this one. It's because every single step of this experiment is about things that I already shown basically on the channel multiple times. So I put a color source in the back just so we can spice things up a little bit. Here I'm showing the type of chat that you can have if you also want like a 3D chat effect. All you would have to do is basically in your CSS, make sure that every piece of chat has like a background color and then boom, 3D block effect. And there you go. You would have that chat. Okay. Made sure that my text was taking full screen. Also added, of course, 3D block, but also composite blur, anticipating that later on we're going to play with the blur. Change the font here. And then I think I settled on the Super Mario font right there, Mario 64. So what I did is go scene by scene, right? So I'm starting with the starting soon, and then I'm anticipating to go to just chatting. So what I did here is add the move value filter. That's from the move plugin. And basically the move value filter lets you move values from your previous filters, right? So right now we have 3D block and composite blur. So if move value is basically like keyframes, we can be like, okay, register every option from the 3D block here. So the position, the thickness, the wiggle, everything. And then I duplicate that, create another one, and then move it physically, like move the values on the 3D block filter, click get value to register those. You can see I have JC1 and JCB1. That's basically JC1 is the position, JCB1 is the blur. So every single time I will have a move value filter, one for the 3D block, one for the blur. So JC1, JCB1, it's like, okay, this text, where is it going to be during just chatting? And how blurry is going to be during just chatting. It's very simple. It's just meticulous to add it to every single source that you're going to have across multiple scenes, right? One thing I did is set the next move to be, well, each other basically. So JC1, the next move would be JCB1. So that the blur and the position move together and there's only one single trigger each time. I also set the final value to be 2 seconds because I wanted it to be pretty slow. You can see me setting the second position of the text here. I wanted to basically fly towards the screen and a little bit off screen. So it, you know, really shows you, hey, this is some 3D stuff that you're looking at, right? And of course, it's also gonna blur. So I flipped it because I wanted to have some rotation. You're gonna see it fly out right now, just like that. And I'm looking pretty proud of myself here. And I press start and it comes back also like kind of slowly, which is cool. Now it was time to play with the blur. So it takes 2 seconds for it to blur and then it can come back in focus. It would look like that. So now all I had to do is basically sync them together. And I believe I have it here just like that. You can see basically fly out of focus as if it was real 3D. And I'm not going to lie, that's pretty much all there is to it. It's make thing fly on screen, out of screen. I really enjoyed for the just starting soon screen. What I did is make the camera go in the background and stay blurry. That was the same thing for a be right back scene basically. And yeah, it's just like that kind of principle is something that you don't really see on people's live streams. So it could be interesting or not. It doesn't matter. Again, I don't think this is something that you guys should be even doing as a setup. It is not practical at all. It is very meticulous. And if you're wondering how do I trigger those scene changes if everything's going to be on one single scene, well, I use Streamerbot for that. I'm going to show you a little bit later the whole setup, but yeah, Streamerbot would trigger them, which means that anything could trigger them. If you want keyboard shortcuts, you could just have them set up through Streamerbot. But also if you want some fancy stuff like voice control, you can also have that. So here I'm working on the gameplay scene and you can see me doing the cropping that I was telling you about with the advanced mask. And that's what's so versatile with the 3D block filter. But of course, since we're using move value as keyframes here, we actually needed to have 3 different keyframes. So 1 keyframe for the 3D block, 1 keyframe for the blur, and then 1 keyframe for the advanced mask. And since they're all doubled up because, you know, it has to go from one position to the other. So yeah, that's 6 filters just for that. 6 move value filters just to move the camera from gameplay to like just chatting or anything else. Oh yeah, and then I think around here, I kind of stopped the recording because it was like 1 hour of recording all of this. And I was like, yeah, there's no way that's going to be my actual footage. I'm going to finish the project and then I'm going to record it to explain how it works and show every single thing. But I ended up not recording the rest and then everything disappeared. So in order to make sure that you understand the sauce, I'm going to partially recreate it. So you can't say I didn't teach you anything, even though, again, this is information that's already out there on my channel. So in OBS Studio, let's create a new scene. I'm going to call this one Delete 3D because I'm going to delete it after. And let's add my camera. I have my camera in a nested scene, so we're just going to add that. Boom. Make sure I activate it. Hi, it's me. All right. I'm immediately going to put that in a group. I should put myself more centered. I'm going to put it in a group. So right click, group selected items. That's how you do groups. Call it 3D cam. I think in order to survive this whole thing, you just have to be really good with how you're naming everything, especially the filters, since the camera is going to have 8 filters in total. Wait, no, 9 filters actually. And let's add them. We're adding the filters to the group so it doesn't actually affect the camera on any other scene, right? Filters, and we're going to add the advanced mask first, okay? And we're going to set it to be its normal width, or at least as close as possible, maybe slightly lower so that when we crop, it's not too far, okay? But also we have corner radius, which is nice. We can control that later. Then we're going to add the 3D block, which is right there. Boom, boom. And just like that, we have a 3D camera. It's really that easy. You know what? Let's make it wiggle right now. Wiggle, and also wiggle rotation. There you go. And yeah, let's go back and add that corner radius just like that. Pretty clean, right? Pretty cool, right? And basically by default on the 3D block, you would probably have your tilts be around 0 and then your scale be like this. Actually, if this is the just chatting scene, you would want your wiggle to chill. You might leave a little bit of wiggle, just a little bit, right? Make it a little interesting, right? Okay, cool. Then what else do we need for 3D? We need blur, composite blur. That is also a plugin for OBS. So how do I get composite blur for OBS Studio? You type those exact words into Google and then boom. I think the value that I ended up was like 15. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, for now, default values. And we can add our first move value. That's from the move plugin. How do you get the move plugin for OBS Studio? Exact words, Google. What scene are we technically on right now? It would be just chatting. So I'm gonna call this one just chatting 3D, right? Now, how do we set the move value to actually move the stuff from the 3D block? We select the filter, we select 3D block, and then we set it to settings because it's gonna be multiple settings, right? And we click get values, boom. Everything that I'm setting right now is recorded, if you will. One thing I'm immediately going to do is set the delay to, you know what? We're going to set it to 3 seconds. So it's really, really slow and you get to see what I'm doing, right? All the movement and maybe it'll look smoother. And that's it for recording the position and also like the wiggle value and all that from the 3D block. It's set. You got it. Congrats. It's that simple. Now I'm going to duplicate this. And this one will be the cropping, for example. So just chatting crop. Wait, yes, it's just going to be default, right? Because we need to save the values. In this case, just chatting crop, the filter would be advanced mask, right? If you know for certain that you're not going to touch any other setting, you can set this to single setting. And then the setting can be the width. That's what I'm going to be cropping on my camera. But if not, just put it to settings and you have all the values, get values. It saves everything, right? Let's say you want to change the rounded rectangle, for example, the corner radius. Finally, we're going to duplicate this again, and we're going to click blur. We're going to call it blur. What am I saying? I'm just saying random words. We're going to click blur. This time the filter is, you guessed it, composite blur. And single setting is fine because it's just a blur radius, right? Get value. We know it's at 0. Congrats. So right now with the title, just chatting, this cropping, and just chatting, this amount of blur, which is none. Now in Streamerbot, I don't want to trigger those one by one, right? I want to trigger just one. So I'm going to go to just chatting. I'm going to tell it, hey, when you trigger this, when I trigger this, simultaneously trigger the crop. And then simultaneously go to the just chatting crop and then simultaneously trigger the blur. So now one of them triggers all of them, which means in Streamerbot, technically, in order to bring my camera and blah, 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 I can have an action called just chatting. And one of them can be, this is the old one, by the way. I have cam here and you can see set source filter state. That's in OBS Studio is set to just chatting. It was called JC on the other project. Now you might be wondering, why are you triggering other things? Actually, every single source, you will need to trigger the other sources that are in OBS to let them know where to go. But that's for later, okay? For now, we're just focused on this because we only have one single source, which is our camera. That's all we need to know. Now, where do we want the camera to go during another scene, right? Let's say BRB. I'm going to duplicate my just chatting 3D and I'm going to call it BRB 3D. Or actually, let's do gameplay. Okay, let's do gameplay. This would be gameplay 3D. Okay, I'm going to duplicate the just chatting crop and this will be gameplay crop. And finally, duplicating just chatting blur becomes gameplay blur. All right, does it make sense? I hope so. So now all I have to do is go and manually place it, you know, with 3D block selected here. I'm going to be like, hey, you know what? Why not tilt it a little bit like this? And then of course, I'm going to use the scale to bring it down. I did a whole rotation in the video I posted on Twitter. It doesn't look good. It really looked like an 80s animation, which is, you know, if that's what you're going for, that's fine. But if not, then you're in trouble like this. And we can probably scale it down a little bit more, right? It's going to be gameplay. You don't want the camera to be huge. So that's fine. So that's the position in 3D space. Maybe you want more wiggle on your gameplay scene. You can just bump it up a whole lot. So now you can select gameplay 3D, click get values, and it's recorded. Let's go to advanced mask and let's crop it by reducing the width, just like that. Cool. Now we can go to gameplay crop, click get values, and we got it. Now blur doesn't change. So the value is still going to stay at 0. We're cooking. We're good. One thing to remember is that since we duplicated everything, we need to double check everything. So simultaneous move from gameplay 3D should be gameplay crop. Simultaneous move from gameplay crop should be gameplay blur, right? So now one thing can trigger the other. And the good news here is that we get to test it now, right? So if I click on just chatting 3D, it should do the movement, do the crop, undo the crop, and the blur doesn't change right now. So it's not bad. It's not bad. There's just like not a ton of rotation. So it doesn't exactly feel like super 3D. But the advantage here is that I can always go back. For example, gameplay 3D. I know that there's not enough rotation. I can put a lot more rotation, right? I can tilt it up like that. Go back to gameplay 3D, click get values. And now when I switch from both, there will be a little bit more, right? It will feel more organic and more 3D, right? Because that's what we're looking for. If we bring it back, just like that, right? Obviously, like this is way too much. You wouldn't actually want that. Maybe like that. Maybe you can get away with that right there. So let's go back, get values. Okay, cool. Now you just have to do it with every single source. For example, your gameplay. I already have something here. We're going to put it under the camera. And again, if you don't want the filter to affect it, you can add it to a group. In this case, I don't care. This is fake gameplay anyways. I'm going to delete the filters it already has. And we know we're not going to be cropping this, or there's not going to be any alpha issues. So we can just add the 3D panel effect here, just like that. Set our tilt to 0, play around with the scale. There you go. And the corner radius is going to be part of the 3D thing. You can keep it like that. If you want it to be full screen, that's also completely fine. You can also just make it full screen, right? It's only when it's moving out of the way that's going to be a quote unquote concern. Now, the question is, where do you want this to go during just chatting? Since I know my camera is going to be coming from the left and then growing, I probably want it to fly out, right? So let me add my composite blur. Boom. Set that to 0 for now. Move value. So we're going to set the current values. And just like before, this is gameplay 3D for the 3D position. Filter is a 3D panel. Settings, all of them. Get value. Custom duration 3 seconds. Nice. Duplicate it. And then gameplay blur. There's no cropping, so we don't need to add anything extra. The filter is composite blur. Single setting. Blur radius 0. We got it. Finally, duplicate. Cool. Now time for the position and the blur when we're going to go back to just chatting or to a be right back screen. So duplicate the position. And this is just chatting 3D or just chatting 3D position. And I'm going to duplicate this one or any of them really, as long as you put the right settings. And this is going to be just chatting blur. Just make sure you pick the right filter. Now I know that this is going to fly out during the just chatting. So I'm immediately going to set this blur to like 20. That's for sure. And now we can play around with the position. So here I can decide, is it going to be bigger? So is it going to fly towards the camera or away from it? I think away from it might be cool. We're going to make it rotate. So flip. I don't know if you can see this. So we're going to make it tilt in that position quite a bit. Almost do a 360 and maybe upwards. And then I can make it go to the right, all the way to the right. While I have it there, I'm going to make it go all the way up and then more to the right. Okay. So now I can go back to just chatting, click get values, and it registers that. That's my second keyframe. Remember what we do to make them trigger automatically? We go to gameplay 3D. We set the simultaneous move to gameplay blur. We go to just chatting 3D. We set the simultaneous move to just chatting blur. Nice. So now just for the gameplay, because we are on filters for the gameplay, I should be able to click and watch it fly in. There you go. So you don't really want to exaggerate everything because it might be a little too much. But if you don't like the animation, you can, again, go back, reduce the amount of flips or the direction and all of that. This is why I'm saying it's meticulous and I don't want to do it. But flying out, this is what it does. We're using OBS Studio like a 3D software basically at this point. So let's do that again, see the fly out animation, and that's what it looks like. Now, does it make sense that our camera is going to switch position without changing focus? Not really, but basically this is where pre-planning, this is where I hit a wall when pre-planning, is that I wanted it to be like layers, like planes, that it's going and everything is moving in one direction or the other. But since the camera needs to physically shrink and stuff, in 3D space, it doesn't make sense, right? The only way I could make it happen is if I duplicate the camera and then the just chatting camera is actually different than the gameplay camera. But we don't want to do all that. So let me bring back the gameplay like that. And what I'm going to do is show you like the Streamerbot setup. So create one action for each scene, basically that you want to switch. And then for just chatting, for example, you're going to add a trigger for each source, right? Now, why are we adding a sub action for each source? Because not only do you need to bring in the sources that you want, but the other sources, if they're in the way, need to know to get out no matter what. So that's one of the biggest issues with this type of one scene setup, is that every single time you want to move something, you also need to tell something else, either stay there or move in that position, but stay out of the way. Otherwise, you're going to have lingering sources that do whatever they want. We can't have that. Okay. So right click, add OBS Studio. Hopefully it's connected. Source and source filter state. Okay. Let's start with the camera, and it's not connected. Jeez. Okay, I connected it. So right click, add OBS Studio, sources, set source filter state. Cool. So the scene is delete 3D. The source is 3D cam. That's the name of the group. Very important because that's where our filters are. And we are on the sub action called just chatting. So we're going to pick just chatting. And just like that, this will bring your camera to the just chatting state. Okay. Now, since I only have another source, I'm going to duplicate this action, and I'm going to set it to the gameplay. And since we're going to the just chatting, and this is the just chatting sub action, we're going to set it to just chatting. This is why naming your filters is so important. So this puts the camera up front and also tells the gameplay to freak off. And then you can select whatever trigger. It could be a chat command. It could be a keyboard shortcut. It could be anything that when you right click on trigger, everything here, right? It could be a kick channel reward if you want. It could be a meld studio connected or scene changed. Oh, actually, yeah, you can link it to actually switching scenes, but you only have one scene. Anyways, it can be anything, right? It can so be anything that I decided to make it a voice command, because that's something, if you go to core, voice control, that's something that Streamerbot does. So I can set this to command, and I already made a command when I say the words just chatting. So I'm going to select it here, delete the old one. So now if I say just chatting, nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? First of all, I need to check if Streamerbot is taking into account the right mic. So if I scroll down, go to voice control, settings, let's go here. Microphone, that's not the right one. Mic in Elgato, there you go. Now we should be good. Is it listening? Listening status stopped. Okay, so it wasn't even listening anyways. Start listening. And now let's go back to my actions, and I can say the words just chatting. It's that simple. Anyways, it's such a silly idea. I love it. So in gameplay, you would do the same thing. Sub action, add OBS Studio, set source filter state, pick the camera and tell it, since we're in gameplay now, gameplay 3D would be the one. Boom, duplicate it, and then pick whatever other source you have. For example, the gameplay, and you want it to come to your gameplay source. And since everything is linked, that's all you need. Because now what I can do is say the word, I already had like the command set up. Gameplay. Okay, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Gameplay. What's my command? Game? No, that's it. It should be gameplay. I did something wrong. Gameplay. There we go. I don't know why it's being weird. So yeah, that's the principle. Just chatting. Gameplay. So yeah, if for some reason you decide to do this, I would say that your gameplay camera should be different from your just chatting camera. And basically, of course, it adds a new layer. It's a new annoying layer of having to duplicate to add more filters and all that stuff. But that's the only way you could possibly add like that linear depth, right? Have things fly towards the camera to disappear on the side. Let me show you what I'm talking about. For example, if I wanted my just chatting scene to be behind all of this in 3D space, right? I would have my camera scale up. Actually, like I could just have it scale up like that. And then it looks like it's flying past. If I scale it up and I blur it while it's doing that, it already looks like it's flying away. You see what I mean? Because it's already giving you like a little bit of 3D depth, right? So all you would have to do is scale it and maybe rotate it a little bit while it's going, right? So you would do this and then, you know, make sure you have the position like that. And then your gameplay, you would be able to tilt it and also make it fly you know, right side of the camera, revealing your just chatting camera, but your just chatting camera would be flying into screen also. Like that. Let's say I would tilt it on the y-axis, just like that. Then scale it up a bunch and move it horizontal to the right while blurring. And it would look like everything is flying by, right? And the cool thing with keyframes with the move value is that I just messed with everything, right? But if I say the words, just chatting, it all comes back because the values are set, right? You have your keyframes recorded, basically. Gameplay. Ta-da! Love it. If you're like, oh, well, you didn't show how to do the text. Come on, man. Use the brain. Use the brain. Added new text. If you don't know how to add text in OBS, you have no business watching advanced tutorials like that. This is not a tutorial. Anyways, big brain. And then select the font. Let's make it extra thick. Boom, 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 boom. Let's make it even bigger. And one thing that's important here is that since it takes into account the alpha, so the transparency of this, you actually want more empty space because it's going to move around in there. You don't want that to be cropped. So you can add a bunch of space, and then I like adding some line returns. I don't know how to say it in English. Anyways, make it big so that when you go to filters and you add the 3D block, because that's the one that takes transparency into account. Wow, wow, there you go. 3D text, Windows screensaver, 3D text, and wiggle a lot and wiggle rotation. And it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Now you can set the position, you know, be a little in the middle. Like, oh, how do I make it fly or whatever? Same way. Tilt it the way you want, scale it, fly in, blur that while it's flying in, flying out. That's all it is. That's all there is to it. If you like this idea and you want to see more creative stuff around OBS Studio, live streaming, or just recording, subscribe, man. Subscribe and turn on notifications. If you haven't seen all the videos that I'm going to link in the description, what are you doing? You missed out. You missed out already. So make sure you don't miss out ever again and turn on notifications. Make sure you set it to everything, everyone, so that every video you get a notification. I don't post shorts, so you're not going to be bombarded with notifications. For that, I stopped posting shorts, so every single notification you're going to get is going to be a banger of a video. Anyways, thanks for watching.